March the 4th, 2018. Welcome to another edition of Community Issues. I'm your host, Omar. Joining me live right here in Live Access Studios is a very special guest. He's a motivational speaker. He's a coach, financial, economic, and all that good stuff. Mr. Darrell Andrews.
Hey, man. How you doing, Omar?
All right,
it's good to see you again, man.
Okay, definitely,
yes.
definitely.
Yes,
we saw each other this morning at church.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. The best place to see each other.
Your business.
Yes.
Talk about how it started and why you started it. Just give us some basic background information.
Yeah, you know, and throughout the state, a lot of people know who I am and what I do. But a lot of times people don't know the foundation of what you do, you know, why you do it. And so years ago, I was working in a Fortune 500 company called Abbott Laboratories, big healthcare company.
Oh, wow.
And Abbott had what was called a lending library where they lend you tapes and you can listen to different speakers and experts and all.
Right.
And so I was working in corporate sales and I would travel all up and down my region, but I had time in between calls, so I would pop in a tape and I would listen to Zig Ziglar. You know, I would pop in the tape, I would listen to Les Brown. You know, I would pop in the tape, Jim Rohn, the legends, man.
Right.
And I just was so moved by how these guys inspired the best out of people and organizations and corporations and things like that. And it just dawned upon me, man, this is what I want for my life. This is what I want to do. I want to have impact on people that these guys had on me. So I started to devise a plan during my corporate days to one day leave my corporate job and be really full-time in this industry. One thing that those guys taught me, and there was people like Dr. Miles Monroe too, who was a minister at the bottom, but he speaks well, unfortunately passed away. But speak to people like that. But I realized these individuals had great levels of expertise. So I realized one of the keys to being an effective speaker, expert, is to have an expertise in what you do. So so that was the foundation of it, and that was over 2 decades ago.
Okay, wow.
So we've been at it for a long time now.
Definitely.
Yes.
Now, as we were speaking before the show, there are a lot of people, you know, if they got to present an essay or a dissertation or some type of form of paper in front of class, they're nervous.
Right.
But you have the desire and motivation to want to speak in front of people as a living.
Yeah.
How'd you get that inspiration?
You know, I was laughing when you said that too, because I said that, you know, I must have been crazy thinking when you think about the #1 fear in the world I do for a living. Right. You know, I always jokingly say people can't even put their hands up in the class to ask a question because they don't want the spotlight out of them. I just, you know, I always tell people a couple things, you know, and it's the same thing if you're a professional on a stage or consulting an organization or coaching an individual, is be prepared. You know, the more you know your craft, the more you know your subject matter, the less fearful you're going to be, because you have the confidence that you're an expert. Right. You know, so you won't be nervous, and you may be nervous, but you know you can deliver. Right. You know, because you know your stuff in a sense. Definitely. And the next thing is, man, to make sure that you have the proper meaning in your communications. Like people like me, I'm in front of stages with thousands of people, man, literally thousands sometimes. Right. And so when I go up there, I see those thousands of people, or if it's a small group training with 20, as someone who I'm really using my words to impact them in a significant way. So when you're standing up there, think that what you're saying, no matter what it is, if you're presenting to a boss a proposal, what you're communicating is going to benefit them, so that your perspective on it is solid, so that again helps with the confidence. So just those few things I think would help.
Now when you do your public speaking, is it a particular subject or subject matters that you focus on? Or what is it that you speak on?
Well, a lot of my work is around personal and professional development. So let me just kind of go there. Sure. But I do it in multiple ways. Okay. You know what I'm saying? So I do it in multiple ways, like in workforce development, I'm invited to speak there. Education, as most people know, I speak with youth and educators and school district, you know, but I'm invited with some corporations and things of that nature as well. But the thing about it is, when you have, and keep in mind, I keep emphasizing not just speaking, but an expertise. Right. The best way you use that expertise is to customize it to the need of your customer. Okay. Now, back when Les and Zig and those guys are out, you can have one speech and just go around and be, you know, speaking to anybody on that one topic matter. Les has been my Mamie Brown's baby boy for 50 years. Yeah. Awesome. You know, but today, since there's a lot of people coming into the marketplace, you are best served when you have an expertise that can fit the need of the customer, and you customize your presentation to that customer's needs. So no matter if I do 100 presentations a year, no two presentations are the same.
Okay.
And that benefits my customer because it's addressing their needs.
Right.
Or if I'm coaching somebody, I don't coach people the same. You see what I'm saying? So
Definitely.
Yeah.
You know, I was thinking before the show, as I was organizing, today's program, to be a guest speaker as a living, I would assume that you had to do a lot of research, especially if you're dealing with multiple topics. I mean, because you're the one, as you mentioned, expertise. Right. People are going to ask questions after question after questions. They're going to want guidance. They're going to want education and information. So, speak for a moment on the importance of the research that a speaker has to do to talk about a particular subject.
That's a great question. That's a great question, and I think it's one of the most important things. And I'm gonna tell you something. I'm not trying to sound funny or try to compare, but that's what separates the expert from the novice. Okay. The novice kind of feels like I have a speaking talent. I can get up and just say it, and everybody's gonna be impacted by it. The expert may have the same talent, but they're doing their homework, man. They're studying their industry. Right. They're looking at the thought leaders in their industry. They're reading the books. They're looking at, other people speak that's in the same field. Right. They go to conferences, and they learn about their expertise. They're like not just speaking, sometimes you're conference attendees where you're trying to gain newfound knowledge. They're reading newspapers. They're doing so the research is important, and then even from the customer's perspective, researching the customer. Right. What's their need? What do they need your expertise the most? Asking a lot of questions. And so, when you're, again, a speaking expert or consulting expert, that research is the most critical aspect of it. Right. Because what it does is it now prepares you to go in and deliver content that's relevant. It's nice to hear yourself, that's cool, but they need to know you benefit from what you're saying. So research helps you with that.
Now, I'm just sitting here thinking, if you look at two of our most prominent leaders in the African American community, we just celebrated Black History Month, but if you look at Malcolm X and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the movie Malcolm X, there was a scene with him and his wife Betty Shabazz, played by Angela Bassett, when she was saying to you, I need you. And Malcolm said, what do you want me to do? Because he's traveling all over the world. Martin Luther King Jr. was traveling all over the world. So that's a big sacrifice being a speaker, because a lot of time is taken away from your family. So how do you manage? Going from, because you travel across the world.
I travel. I do travel a lot. And what's happening? I'll tell you this. When I first got into this field, I'll be honest with you. One time my son said, "Dad, do you live at a hotel?" Because I was always at hotels. Right. But what happens is once you kind of move into the field, you realize you're an expert as well as a speaker. I started to balance my business out between speaking, training, and coaching. Right. So the bottom line is I was able to not be out as much. But to answer one thing is to communicate, to be able to communicate with your kids often. Right. You can call, check in, things like that, and then make plans where you have blocks of time where you're home and being what you're supposed to be, and that's a father. So, yeah.
All right, before we take a break, what are some of the places that you travel across the world? I mean, I know the United States, but
well, I just mentioned we came back. We were in Nairobi, Kenya.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I tell you, they worked me hard over there. I spoke for like 8 days over there straight. I've been there. I've been to Virgin Islands. I've been to Mexico, places like that. Wow. So we've been a lot of places. But I love the United States, man, because I love helping, impacting people and organizations right here in our country.
All right. Live right here on Lisa S Channel 28, you're watching Community Issues. I'm going to take a short break and I'll return. Welcome back to Community Issues. I'm your guest, motivational speaker, Mr. Andrews, Darrell Andrews.
Yes, sir.
Now, you go by the phrase or the name Coach D.
Yes.
So talk about your coaching practices.
Yeah. Well, let me say this. First, let me tell you why I call myself Coach D.
Okay.
That's not because of my personal, professional coaching.
Right.
It's because my style is like a coach. And what I mean by that is a coach does one of two things. One, a coach provides strategy.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Like when a team goes on in the court, I wouldn't imagine, it would be kind of a travesty to have a coach that don't give them a strategy. Just go out there and give it your best.
Right.
No, they give them a blueprint, a game plan. And then the second thing that coach does too is he or she gives what I call customized motivation.
Okay.
One of the greatest coaches that ever lived was a guy named John Wooden. And John said this. He said the reason why he won 10 NCAA championships, he doesn't coach any two players the same way.
Right.
Each players have talent, skills, and abilities that that they possess, and my job as a coach is to pull it out. So I just wanted to give you the understanding of the Coach D. It's not just something I threw out there.
Right.
It has meaning. But yes, I coach individuals. I do speaker coaching. I do professional development coaching, executive coaching as well. But the principles I use in speaking and training is no different than coaching.
Right.
I'm given the strategy. We're analyzing what the goals are, and we're very strategic. Let me say this, man. There's a saying that I use that a lot of folks who are just purely straight motivational speakers, and I really don't even call myself that much anymore. I'm more of a motivational strategist.
Okay.
That is motivation without information is simply good conversation.
Okay, I like that.
Because you know why? Strategies will get you there, man. And a lot of people get hyped and amped and feeling good, but you know what happens on Monday, they back to business as usual.
Right.
It's the strategy, it's the process that gets you from where you want to get to. So with coaching, if I had a value proposition of what I offer, I'm not a flash in the pan. I've been doing this 2 decades.
Right.
I'm not throwing stuff out there. I'm being real strategic with people.
Right.
Because I don't care too much for you being all amped up in the moment. I want to see you a year from now accomplish what it is you're looking to accomplish.
Right.
And that's when you can get motivated.
Right. Earlier we talked about those who may be afraid to do public speaking in some form or fashion. What words of advice would you give to those who are afraid or nervous about speaking in front of others?
They may want to make a career out of speaking, you say, or just in general?
Just in general, or both.
Yeah, because I think we addressed a little bit about the 2 things, the preparation.
Right.
We talked about that just a little bit, and then recognizing the audience. But again, if you do things like, for instance, if you want to be in this field professionally, if you do it and you look at it as a mission, it changes everything. Right. I tell people all the time, I haven't worked a job in 20 years. And that doesn't mean I'm not working. I work harder than anybody else.
Right.
But to me, it's not work, man. It's truly mission.
Right.
I had a chance to speak to the largest corporation in the world, Walmart Corporation. They flew me down to Walmart, picked me up in Newcastle County in a private jet, and flew me down to Bentonville, Arkansas, to speak to all their senior managers worldwide. 2,000 on location, 6,000 via satellite. And I talked about striving for excellence. Afterwards, I can't count the number of high-level executives at Walmart that walked up and told me how much that changed their lives, how much it impacted lives. Now, you would think, here's a $1 trillion company, right? But you know what? My mission is to impact the lives of people in such a way that they can see the bigger picture and the purpose. And through that corporate speech, was able to change their lives. That's the beauty of this. But that's because I'm a mission-driven speaker. Not just a speaker, just speaking for the sake of having a speaking gig.
And for those who are watching right now and say, hey, I think I want to be a professional speaker as a career, what is the average salary for a public speaker?
Well, I can't give an average salary because it depends on what you do and who you know. It varies. You got people making millions, and you got people making thousands. So that depends on the level of the speaker. It depends on what they want to accomplish. But I will say, if you want to get into this field, the worst thing you can do is and I'm just going to be real honest about this because people are doing it all the time, is put up a website and say I'm a speaker. You need to learn some things about the field. You need to study the industry. Go to Toastmasters and learn the process of building a speech. Because today we have a lot of folks just putting stuff up and saying things. I said, but after a while your game will be kind of exposed. You got to be a true professional. So just like any other field, doctor, lawyer, politician, whatever, you need to study so that you have an insight, so that when you stand on that stage or speak in that training program, you're qualified. Because plus, as you start to go higher in the level of professionalism, the people you're dealing with, you will be exposed real fast. Because they know if you're serious or not, man. They know, and after a while, you start building a reputation. So become a true expert. Get to studying, have people coach you. I coach. There's other speakers that coach that have been doing this for a long time. But learn process and learn and become a student of this. And no different than anybody else that's trying to excel in it.
You know, there are those who do speaking. And let me give you a scenario. Let's say John Doe is speaking in front of 1,000 people at a Coliseum. He makes a statement, and the audience started to boo. So what should a speaker do if the audience start to boo him or her?
Well, that's an interesting statement because I've never had anybody boo me ever. I've never. That's never happened. I think. Listen, if you keep your presentation, and this is the expertise part. If your presentation is audience centered, and not you centered, you'll never get a boo. Because people don't like when you're standing up there, arrogant, you know, speaking down to them, or sharing information, throwing it out there without preparation. When you know your audience, you know the needs. You know the buzz, the phrase, you know what people want. So when you're standing there, Omar, you're not winging it, you know, or saying the same cookie cutter thing every time you stand up. You know the needs of those individuals. So I've been doing this for 20 years. I've never, ever gotten a boo. So my answer, I don't know what you would do because it never happened. But I think I prevent that from happening by knowing my audience and not making this the Coach D show.
Well, when I asked, I never said, for you, as that you personally experienced booing, I was just speaking.
No, I said in general, I think what you need to do, first of all, is back up, smile. If you want to just some general stuff, back up, smile, and then you know, if they booing, apologize. Say, you know, I'm sorry, you know, what I said something that offended you. Let's move on. So you want to move them into the next phase of your presentation.
But on the opposite end, you know, when I had to do a presentation, and when you're speaking, and when you see people nodding their heads and clapping, that gives you more higher self-esteem. I'm quite sure you probably experienced that a lot.
I experienced a lot, but let me tell you why that happens. Listen, I'm going to tell you what a guy said to me after a presentation one time to people who speak professionally. All right, so these are the toughest critiques in the world. He walks up to me, looks me in the eye, a guy from India, and he says, your presentation became mine. He said, when you spoke, I took ownership. And that's when you know you're right where the people are, man. You know, and this doesn't matter if you're a preacher, teacher, or anything. When you reach the heart of people and they can own this. Now, I'm not brilliant enough to say this is me. Zig Ziglar taught me this. You know, people like that. Dr. Jim Rohn taught me this. The best in the game ever. These folks taught me that the audience is the most important thing in the world when you're a speaker. It's not about you. And the more you can get them to own what you're saying, then their life starts to change. You know what I mean? And that's what I like. Omar, I get hundreds of emails of lives that have been changed. If we had time in the show, I can share stories that you wouldn't even believe of what has happened to lives of people, you know, because of presentations. You know, I'll say this, a 2-second story. I met a man one time that had sold 4 of his businesses worth about $80 million, sold them. He came to one of my How to Find Your Passion seminars. And he said, I came here because I've made a lot of money selling businesses, but I don't have a sense of significance. And I believe that you can help me get this today. I said, wow. Here's a guy that has what everybody wants, the money. And he said, the money didn't make me significant. So we did some training, and I worked with him. And guess what? He walked away a man with an uplifted spirit, ready to take life on. That's when you know you're doing your job well.
Definitely, you know, so I'm a playwright and an actor. And some of the things that I do as a playwright, as well as some of the others, we compare the audience. Like, for example, we have opening night. As I say, opening night's on a Friday. We compare that audience to the Saturday night, and then to the Sunday night. You know, which audience was more lively, which was more into it, which one was talking back. So, as a speaker, hopefully this question makes sense. When you go to New York or go to Delaware, go to South Africa, do you feel a different vibe when you go from city to city?
You do feel a different vibe. And again, that goes back to what you said earlier, doing your research. You see what I'm saying? Like in some cultures, and like you're speaking, you can never speak in a culture in India like you do in the United States. So if you go with your United States speech to India, they're going to kick you out of there. Like nations like Japan, that's honor. There's a lot of honor there. So the way you start your presentation off and the way you communicate with the leaders there are different than what you do in the United States. So the bottom line is you need to, it goes back to what you said earlier, you do your homework. I mentioned I was just in Kenya. and I needed an interpreter. Because a lot of folks there speak Swahili.
Okay, gotcha.
You see what I'm saying? So I couldn't come and do my American thing,
right.
you know, with folks who don't half even understand what I'm saying, because the interpreter has to interpret. Then the interpreter has to understand your gestures and things like that. Okay. So, you know, I always say we have to understand that each audience is unique. Location is unique. Right. And here's a real speaker no-no. Don't ever mess up a name of a city.
Oh, okay.
Don't ever stand up in front of an audience, because I've done that before.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I called, who was I? Des Moines Hour. I called it Des Moines.
Oh, okay.
And the audience tuned out immediately, you know.
Wow.
And so what I'm saying is that little things mean a lot when you got audiences staring at you.
Right.
And when you do your homework, then all of a sudden that puts you into a whole nother level. The audience is comfortable with you, and you're comfortable, you know, with yourself.
We have about 5 minutes remaining. If you want to elaborate on any more don'ts that a public speaker should not do, and then you have a free webinar coming up.
I think the big thing is that if you want to be a speaker, first of all, love what you do, just like anything else. You know, love what you do. Know that this is more than just about me, about fame and fortune, because a lot of people do this thinking that's the case. It's about you having a love to make a difference. And I think if you take it from that perspective, you want to be the best student. You know what I mean? You want to learn from the best. I had a 45, 50-minute conversation when I first started speaking with Les Brown. How valuable was that? But he took the time because he knew I was serious about my work. Right. A friend of mine named Keith Harrell, who passed away, was one of the best in the field. He would take hours and coach me because he said, Darrell, they would say to me, Darrell, I can tell you love this field and you want to make a difference. So something simple, make sure you have a love. Yes, if you can go to my website, if anyone goes to my website, coachdcoaching.com, there's a link on there that says speaking webinar. I'm doing a free speaking webinar, teaching people about the business of speaking. Now that's important because speaking is a business. You know what I mean? It's not a hobby. You know, it's a speaking business, and those who are experts. So I'm going to be sharing some strategies. So if you go to coachdcoaching.com, you'll see this the page for the tab for speaking webinar. Click on that. Sign up for the webinar. It's free. And what I'm going to give, this is not a fluff thing, man. This is going to be nuts and bolts. Because I get hundreds of calls. I'm doing this because I get so many calls. Asking questions. I said, can't take all these calls. Let me create some stuff. And and for those who are listening, I do coach professional speakers, but I also coach organizations and individuals on achievement of goals and things of that nature. So we do quite a few, but Coach D Coaching will highlight some of that.
Okay, so if someone wanted to hire you to be a guest speaker or bring you on for a special engagement, how would they contact you?
Again, they can go to the website, Coach D Coaching, or CoachDSpeaks.com. That's my primary speaking, CoachDSpeaks.com. Or call the office if you're here locally, 302-834-1040. I think that's up on the screen, 302-834-1040. And what I like to do is, up front, I like to do about a 5 to 10 minute conversation to get a feel if I'm even a good fit.
Okay.
Some people take anything, man. They'll take anything that comes through the door. I'm not a good fit for everybody. And if I'm a good fit to help you achieve your goals, then let's do business. But if I'm not, I'll direct you to somebody else. Okay. I don't just look for anything, you know?
About a minute and a half remaining. Any closing comments, any shout-outs you want to do to your family?
Yeah, I want to do a shout-out to my family. My wife was going to be here. I would encourage some of you who have kids. She has a business called the Scholarship Shark, www.thescholarshipshark.com. She helped my son win $700,000 in scholarships. I think she's an expert. Awesome. You know, but she coaches families, parents, and children to win scholarships because why pay all that money? So I have a great family. My son's home for college. I'm loving seeing him. He goes to one of the top art schools, and my children are amazing. Shout out to my family. They were supposed to be here, but everybody got tired of the church. They didn't want to leave church. Bishop was preaching a little too good. They didn't want to leave him. Bishop Townsend was preaching too good. They didn't want to leave. So, but thank you, man. Thanks for the time. And I hope people got something out of this. I hope it was helpful.
Definitely. I'd love to bring you on for the future. Anything coming up, just let me know.
I will let you know. Thank you, Omar.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of Community Issues. I'll be back in 2 weeks. God bless and have a safe week.